right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Wind Up Podcast. I know. It has been far too long. Since late December, mid-December, something like that. I can't even remember. There's been a lot of things going on. In fact, I promised you many episodes and things we were going to be catching up on and all that good stuff. And I got a little sidetracked. And we're going to get into that here in a second. But we are back now. And we're going to start trucking away as best as we know how to get the show back on track. I'm not going to lie. It was nice to have a little break. There's been a lot of kind of changes going on personally, professionally. The month of January was just wild all the way through and through. And frankly, just time did not allow to sit here in front of a camera, in front of a microphone, and start recording all over again. So we're going to get back into it. And with that, of course, as we start releasing new episodes, be sure to follow us wherever you're consuming your podcast. Like, subscribe to the show. If you're enjoying it, leave a little comment, a little 5-star, 4-star review. If you didn't like that episode that much, it's fine. I'll take 4 stars. It's all good. Hopefully it's a 5er, though. Check out our other social media networks at MTGA Wines, YouTube, where you can find the video version of this, as well as a whole bunch more content in terms of tasting notes, what's going on in the winery, in the vineyards, harvest, all that good stuff. Instagram, where we probably post most frequently and kind of more regular updates. You can also find us on the social network formerly known as Twitter. Some of those posts bleed over into the Book of Face as well. And we're not on that TikTok thing yet. I can't figure it out. I'm probably going to let my wife handle. Brittany, the HBIC, is going to handle that one because I have no idea how that app works. I'm officially in the realm of this is too much technology. I need to scale this back. That is now the phase of life I'm entering, which is lovely. Be sure to head to our website, though, mtgawines.com. You can find out a little bit more about us, the wines that we have available. There's links to all kinds of things like our mailing list, our wine club, our shop, to check out what our current releases are. Please be 21 years of age or older to check all that stuff out, because it is wine, after all. There's alcohol in it. Go figure. Now, let's go ahead and just dive right in. And I'm going to have a little heart-to-heart with you all here to kick things off and kind of get things started. The slowdown for me, really, as much as I wanted to kind of keep the episodes rolling out through harvest, through the month of December and into this year, frankly, it just wasn't possible. There were a couple of things. Number one was just, most importantly, was time. I was fresh out of time. To be able to kind of stand about and talk into this microphone for 40 minutes or so, plus get the editing done, plus get everything uploaded, and the descriptions, the tags, and all these things, I ran out of time. And this is what happened after a couple of weeks of doing that. I certainly got into my own head about saying it's not that big of a deal. We can miss one. Okay, we missed one. We can miss 2. And then it very quickly kind of snowballed into, why are we even doing this in the first place? And I'm not going to lie. I got a little down on myself. I was kind of it's, we're not trying to be the next biggest thing here in the podcast sphere. Everyone and their mother has a podcast these days. But it was certainly something where I'm what if this falls off? Who's going to care? I definitely threw a lot of this baby out with the bathwater and kind of lost sight of why I got into doing this in the first place. But also trying to find a way to fit what is my new schedule. Something that I honestly, it's been so long, I can't even remember if I mentioned it back in December, but I have started, assisting with a lot of the family winemaking in terms of Anderson's Conn Valley Vineyards and Ghost Horse Vineyards, which has taken up quite a bit more time in just my day-to-day schedule. And the way I would normally try and record these shows is on a Sunday or a Monday, which are kind of my usual days off. I love a good hospitality schedule where you have a weekday off, particularly Monday. It's so nice. That's usually when I'd have my days off, which gave me plenty of time to, stand here in my sweats, because this is only from basically the chest up. You don't know what I'm wearing down here. Could be a tutu for all you know. And it gave me time. It gave me time. That was it. Now with the added, structure that I've had to add to, my normal schedule of getting out to the winery on a more regular basis, being out there for longer hours on a more regular basis, I have a little bit more of the strict weekend minus Saturday. I basically have Sundays off now. That's it. Because a lot of times we're hosting tastings, or if we're traveling on the road, Saturday is kind of a travel day typically, unless we have, wine events and things going on. So it's been tough trying to figure out exactly how I was going to fit in even an hour and a half worth of free time to get this done. And so, as I kind of started, getting a little down on this and not really wanting to do it anymore and kind of forgetting why we started doing it in the first place, we, rolled right through January. And I will say, between travel out to Florida, shout out to all of our friends in the greater Tampa area, Safety Harbor. Of course, Brittany, the HBIC, was over in the northern part of the Keys, Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, or Boca Raton, one of those two. And then we went down to Southern California. We did a big charity event at LMU, which was fantastic. It was our second year doing that. And then, of course, we're getting ready for bottling. We have our wine club shipment, which took up a week and a half of our time getting all that dialed in as we shifted some things around just organizationally for us on the back. And nothing that needs to concern you guys, but just kind of the usual, how are we going to make things better and do things? And it was a little less efficient than we hoped, so more changes to come on that. Anyway, January flew by. And then, of course, we got into the first part of February, which for me, my birthday is in early February, so tried to take some time off for that. Played it pretty easy. We had Premier Napa Valley last week, which is always crazy. As I'm recording this right now, during the afternoon of February 24th, we're bottling tomorrow. And somehow I have a couple of free hours before bottling to do this. So long story longer, it has just been an absolute whirlwind timing-wise and trying to squeeze kind of every minute, every second out of every day and finding space for this. Which brings me to how we're getting back into it right here, right now. I do need to give a special shout out to my buddy Aaron with Bond & Beverage out in Missouri. He's the man with the plan and is our distributor out there. We are talking coming out to Columbia, Missouri, and some other things that we're going to have going on in April. And unsolicited, Aaron, I got to give you some credit. You gave me a great shout out over the phone saying that you've really been enjoying the show, that you're pretty much all caught up or listened to most of the episodes, and that you really liked kind of the practical nature of it, of like, here's just kind of like dollars and cents. Here's what this business is. Here's what we're doing. Here's the updates. Here's how we're handling things. And I don't know, it was in that moment, after nearly a month and a half or so of not doing an episode, it was like, all right, I think that was exactly what I needed to hear. And it felt really, really good. And I'm not great at accepting compliments. It makes me feel weird sometimes because I don't know. It's just a weird mental block I have. So I'm not a good shameless self-promoter. It's not really my thing. Hell, even doing the shout-outs of our social media stuff at the very beginning of each episode is something I hate doing. I absolutely despise doing it. But I know that's what people do in this digital world that we live in. So anyway, we do it. So Aaron, the reason that we're picking back up is probably that conversation. As quick and as brief as it was because it was like, okay, if one person out there is finding value with it, there's probably more than one person. And I know that there's a bunch of you that have provided kudos over the years and have really appreciated certain episodes and have, contributed by asking questions and doing all that good stuff. And, I lost sight of it a little bit and definitely got a little down in the dumps about it and just decided, hey, maybe it's time to move on until someone reached out and said, hey, keep going. And sometimes it just needs a little bit of that. So I really, really appreciate it. So here's kind of the plan moving forward. Because, you guys know this, is that for the most part, this has been like about that 40-minute episode. I would record it, like I said, kind of on that Sunday, Monday, release it that week. What we're going to do is kind of shrink down the episodes a little bit more to hopefully closer to about a half hour. Make them hopefully a little quicker, a little bit more digestible for you guys. But that way, over the course of an hour of recording, we have 2 weeks of content. And hopefully, if we can keep things rolling, and I know there's going to be days, weeks where things do get a little busy and maybe I don't get an episode out. But maybe we can get an episode or two in a week. Do like a Tuesday, Thursday release for episodes moving forward. This afternoon, as I'm talking here right now, my goal is to be here in this office recording 2 hours of content for you guys that we can just kind of continue going on. That way, I've got at least 2 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks worth of shows lined up with stuff that is hopefully interesting, hopefully stands the test of time, between what may or may not change in the next couple of weeks. So, some of it might be a little bit behind the 8 ball, but or a little delayed in kind of getting news out to you guys and kind of opinions surrounding it. But, for myself, kind of my brain space and kind of where the current schedule is, personally, professionally, I think I know it's going to help me a lot. So I'm going to be a little selfish and adjust the timeline of things with the goal of getting 2 episodes out a week, if not at the very least 1, and we'll release them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If there's only 1 coming out that week, we'll release it probably on Tuesday, just to kind of get the week kicked off and go from there. That is the plan moving forward. And I mean, please continue. For those of you that have been regular listeners, maybe those of you who are new and kind of diving right back in, this is kind of that new starting point for us, which is going to be a good time to dive on in. Submit questions in the comments, slide into our DMs and any of those social networks I mentioned. Those of you on our wine club or on our mailing list, you guys know how to get a hold of me. You can always give me a shout. Go to our website. There's a little email box at the bottom of it where you can submit stuff. All kinds of ways to get involved and hopefully learn more about this wine industry that you're passionate about, just like me. So that's where we're headed. This new year is going to be a wild one. I mean, there's a lot more to follow up on kind of after all the businessy side of things that we talked about last year, kind of this downturn and, very, rocky space that the wine industry finds itself in right now. There's going to be, all kinds of things with new news coming out, technology. There's a great study that came out in early December that I've been dying to get to. We're going to talk a little shit, as we always do, and kind of give you guys, hopefully, some real life kind of practical insight into how the hell this wine industry, hospitality industry, everything actually goes around. That is the overarching goal. So, on that note, we should probably get into it, right? So as usual, I'm going to try to, timestamp some of these things so I can actually go back through, and in the description of each video, you'll kind of see where the topics are. That way you can kind of fast forward or jump around as you see fit. There are going to be links to certain articles, studies, things of that nature where it's pertinent. And we'll go from there. So cheers. I don't have a glass of wine in my hand, but I've been covered in wine for the last 2 weeks getting ready for bottling Premier Napa Valley. So there's beer in a lovely Protect Your Woody cozy from Garwood's up in Tahoe. Shout out to them. We don't have any relationship to them whatsoever, but man, they make a mean tiki drink, the Wet Woody. If you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. All right, kids, let's do this. So coming off of the high of that conversation with Aaron and getting back into this, we just had another just crazy event that we got into as well over the last week. And it's something that is very much kind of the, I would say, measuring stick for the industry, kind of the vibe of where things are at around the country, sometimes even around the world. And that is Premier Napa Valley. Now, there's probably a good chunk of you that have no idea what that is. There are probably a handful of you that are kind of in the trade and in the industry that know exactly what I'm talking about. And this happened just this last week. So going back to Saturday, just a few days ago, 4 or 5 days ago now, was a big barrel auction, tasting and barrel auction. And what Premier Napa Valley is, and before I get too far into it, some of you may actually be familiar with Auction Napa Valley, or what is actually now known as Collective Napa Valley, as something that the Napa Valley Vintners put on, similar to Premier, but it is for more of our charitable kind of giving. A lot of that, in fact, all that money gets donated out to all kinds of groups. I mean, millions and millions of dollars have been raised by Collective Napa Valley. I'm going to say this. I'm probably going to say Auction Napa Valley 100 more times. It's like growing up with Taylor's Refresher versus Gott's Roadside. You just kind of naturally slips, or Sears Point versus what is now Sonoma Raceway. It's going to happen. I know it's Collective Napa Valley, but I'm probably still going to fuck up and call it Auction every once in a while. It's just the way it's going to be. So if there's anyone from the Vintners listening, my bad, but you change something after 40 years and whatever, yeah, it's going to happen. So these 2 auctions are really kind of these big fundraisers. Collective Napa Valley, there we go, is the big kind of charitable giving one. And then Premier Napa Valley, which just happens every February, is kind of the big fundraiser for the Napa Valley Vintners, and is really focused on people within kind of the trade or the wine business. This is typically anyone with like a wholesale license. So it's distributors, it's retail shops, it's restaurants, and their owners, their wine buyers, their sommeliers, whomever, they come from all over the world to taste these wines and bid on these auction lots to buy these super exclusive wines that are in essence these one-offs that these wineries make specifically for this event. This is only our second year participating, actually. Our first year was 2025. We joined the Vintners in 2024 and didn't do it in time to do any kind of the big events, so we picked up in 25 and started doing them then. Now, just to give you a little background, you can go and Google search or whatever the Napa Valley Vintners. They're in essence kind of the trade and like advocacy, like marketing group. They're the ones that actually kind of organize these big events. They do programming all over the world and to support kind of Napa Valley as a brand. It was something that was founded by some of the most iconic names in Napa long time ago, decades ago, to try and promote the Napa name around the world. And that's really kind of the mission that they continue today, even including, going to, Washington, D.C. to be on Capitol Hill and talk to lawmakers and be like, hey, here's what's affecting our industry, in Napa specifically, but also just winemaking, grape growing, and things as a whole as well. While their focus is Napa, I mean, of course, some of that does kind of ripple into other wine growing areas around, the country. There are a number of wineries that it's an interesting thing because I have folks in my family who have kind of opinions, let's say, about the NVV, the Napa Valley Vintners, and whether or not they're doing a great job. There are a lot of other wineries out there that maybe look at them as not the best or greatest organization, and certainly kind of look down on them for reasons that frankly I can't imagine, because we've only had a great time as a part of it for the last few years, and we're very early on our relationship with them. But it's kind of one of those organizations where if you don't participate, then you don't get to complain. Not to get like political here, but if you don't vote, you don't get to complain. Get your ass to the polling booth, make a decision, and if it goes poorly, eat some crow and try and figure it out the next time around. You don't get to complain if you don't participate, and you certainly can't change anything or the way it's going if you don't participate, right? Which is really one of the reasons why we joined, was not to change everything, but it's like, hey, let's actually be active in what is kind of the premier, and the premier kind of marketing and advocacy group for wine in the world. I mean, the Vintners do an amazing job. The NVV does an amazing job, and there's always room for improvement. And even within a calendar year, speaking of this Premier Napa Valley that we just had, within this calendar year, things changed immensely to try and make it work better for us. And now we'll kind of see, and we'll regroup here in the coming weeks and months and see if there's more that needs to be done or other things that we need to change. So that's kind of like the background on what this is. Probably a little bit more information that you might have needed, but it's a good thing to kind of know about, that all of us wineries are a ton of us wineries participate in, or at least are very conscious of here in the industry. Now, the reason why it's this vibe check kind of on where wine is going is because you have all these people from all over the world, all over the country, coming up and saying, hey, here we are, market to us, sell to us. And truthfully, I mean, you could walk around this event, any of the major events that you can participate in over the course of last week, and you could travel 24/7, 365. You're never going to meet as many or have as much power in the room in an industry outside of this event. You're just not going to. So in that sense, you do really, it behooves you to participate if you're kind of getting out there in the world of wine from just a trade and marketing perspective. One of the big reasons why we joined. And while I'm thinking about it, I should actually Google these results, because I remember a few of them off my top of my head in terms of like money raised and things of that nature. I mentioned auction and premiere, but let's see what we can come up. Please pause for a station identification, right? I don't know if this is actually going to be public information, but we'll see what's up. My super loud mechanical keyboard here. Anyway, so as we set up this tasting, there's events all week. There's wine dinners, there's big tastings, there's just a ton of stuff going on. It's a grind. It's one of those weeks where I know some of you will look out you will look out across the, you know, at us here in Napa and be like, oh, poor you, you have to wine and dine all week. And yeah, it is poor us, but man, it's a lot of work because we start tasting wine at like 8, 9 in the morning, sometimes earlier. And that goes all the way through wine dinners and events that last late into the evening. They are very tough 12-hour days, believe it or not, or more, just trying to kind of keep up with things. Now, the biggest and kind of most fun thing about this series of events is the barrel auction, which over the last couple of years has, happened over a couple of days. This year it happened in one day, where during the morning there's a big barrel tasting, and there were 181, count them, 181 different barrel lots to go around and taste. From there, folks will wander around as long as they need to, make some notes. We all break for lunch, and then we go sit down for the barrel auction, where each one of these lots is auctioned off. So Saturday was a hell of a day. We got very lucky. We were lot number 37, which was very nice. So we got to be done pretty early. The pressure was over. Each of these lots are either 5, 10, or 20 cases. So every winery gets to choose how much they're actually going to donate to the NVV to raise money for this cause. And we always do 5 cases because we're really, really small. And I say always, we've only done it for 2 years, but we did 5 cases because we only make a little bit of wine to begin with. And I will give you what happened, and I want to give you just kind of the feeling in the room because, number one, it seemed really, really positive. We've seen kind of there was a steady decline in the amount of money this auction was raising from about 2015, 16, all the way to about 2024. And then you saw it kind of bounce back up. There was a little variation in 23 where it raised a lot of money. And then we'll see what the final results are, the final tally is for 2026 here shortly. But it was a good vibe. I don't think I really talked to anybody over the course of a week that was really down in the dumps about wine, the current state of it, kind of all the businessy stuff that we talked about last year, which bodes really well. It felt really, really nice to be like, okay, everyone seems to be in a pretty damn good mood about where things are. Yeah, it's tumultuous. Yeah, it kind of sucks sometimes, but we're all in the same boat together and we're all here for one another. So it was a good kind of rah, rah, rah. The best part, about it really is it's always nerve-wracking when your lot goes up because, especially last year, with our first year, we're like, well, hopefully somebody bids on it. And we had some great friends and, folks that we had met over the course of the week bid on it and take it last year. And the same was very, very true this year. And the HBIC said it best because we were talking with a new acquaintance, David, who's at the auction. And he's actually kind of I don't I never name drop, but he's kind of a big deal. I don't know. I'm not going to say because he's working on a wine project kind of thing. That hopefully will be really interesting to see how it comes together in the coming years. We want it to succeed. It'd be very, very cool because it's industry adjacent. It's not in the wine industry necessarily, but about it. So we'll see how it goes. But Brittany said it best to him. She was like, you know what? It's just so amazing to see people that believe in us and that people think that this place is worth what it's worth and that we can still find value here, something along those lines. I mean, she was in tears. He started crying. I started crying. It was a hot mess, but it was glorious. And frankly, that really seemed to be kind of honestly the vibe. It was man, you know what? Everyone it's been really, really tough, but everyone was kind of looking for this immensely positive release. And that's frankly what it was. And, as we got through this last week, I got to tell you, it even renewed, kind of going back to the conversation I had with Aaron, it really renewed my sense for why we do what we do. And also getting back here behind a microphone and talking to you guys about it. And it was easy to, even last week it was tough because I want to say Thursday or Friday even, There were a bunch of layoffs announced. I think there are people closing facilities. Gallo laid off a bunch of people. I think there was another distributor that laid off another 500 people. There was a bloodbath last week in terms of jobs in the wine industry. And you look at that and you go, well, shit, are things actually kind of on the up and up, or is it just are we all just kind of floating in space as the rug gets pulled out from under us all at one time? We just don't know we're falling yet. There is a little bit of that sense. There's a friend of ours, Jess Lander, who writes for the San Francisco Chronicle, that highlighted some of that stuff on Instagram, and it is tough to see because you don't want anybody to lose their jobs, their lives, their livelihood. That's not what you want to see. You don't want to see facilities closing down. I don't care if it's for Gallo or if it's someone small like us. That sucks, any way you slice it. But we all know, and this goes back a little bit to the businessy kind of stuff that we talked about last year. It was a topic that dominated 2025, right? For those of you guys that listened on a regular basis, we got into it on a regular basis. It felt like almost every week. It was about time. This industry was very inflated. Values of land, of grapes, of certain wines, certainly inflated. And at a certain point, the bubble is going to pop. It doesn't make the loss of a job or a business any easier, right? It doesn't soften that blow at all. That's for damn sure. But realistically, this is look at an 08 to 11, right? Look at a dot-com bubble. Look at, what's happening to wine right now. These things happen. And granted, the wine industry is a little bit more niche than some of these other big economic recessions that we've had, but it still hits close to home for those of us that are involved, right? So that can be kind of tough. And it's certainly, especially with kind of it came up a few times last week talking kind of in and amongst people like, man, did you hear? I cannot believe that this is going on, that people are losing their jobs, that these businesses, even these big guys are having to do this, that, or other thing, that these distributors are such a mess. And you're just like, man, at a certain point, there were a couple of points last week where I was like, man, I thank God we have what we have right here, and we're active and we're participating and trying to drive things forward, because there are a lot of people right now that are less fortunate in this industry, and somehow we're trying to, piece it together, which is crazy. And hopefully, we didn't want to do it at, obviously we don't want to do it at their expense. That's not the point. We want everybody in this industry to succeed. It is very tough to see that kind of stuff come down the pipeline, because you don't know, even as a small business like ours that's, privately owned, we could be next. Or the friends that work for the other big company that we're, really, buddy with, could happen to them next. There's a winemaker that lives just down the block from here. Private equity came in, bought a significant stake, is overhauling the winemaking program, hiring a big-time consultant, and, he was told, I think last week, that basically this is your, 2-week notice. We're giving it to you. You're going to hang around, make sure we got everything dialed in, and then after that, you're out. Which is a little different than how private equity normally works. Usually they just clean house and say, fuck off, you're on your own. At least that's my understanding of it. But I know he's a good winemaker, and some of his knowledge is going to prove to be invaluable to them in the long run. So we'll see, I guess. Maybe we'll see how that lies. So, it does hit close to home sometimes, and it is sucky. It's a bummer, but there's still wine being made. There's still great things happening out there in the industry. Unfortunately, where there are, when tough times come along, there are also opportunities that come along with it. And I think if anything really hit home at the end of last week, kind of going through Premiere, seeing some of these headlines, it was like everything everywhere all at once. Like, man, I guess let's just keep moving forward. Let's just keep moving forward. Pour some out for one's homies, 100%. But we got to keep moving. We got to keep moving forward. That's got absolutely has to be the case. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Wind Up Podcast. I'll be back next time to continue the conversation. Until then, be sure to like and subscribe to the show. Follow us on our social networks. That's YouTube, Instagram, The Book of Face, and the social network formerly known as Twitter. The handle for all those is at MTGA Wines. Submit topics for the show on our website. That's mtgawines.com. Just scroll down to the bottom of that homepage and you'll see the form to fill out and submit questions our way. Until next time, have a great day, week, weekend, month, whatever the case may be, and we'll see you next time here on the Wind Up Podcast. Cheers.